Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Power Sessions at Five Star Real Estate. Together, I have the privilege of teaching today with Eric Graham. Hi, Eric.
Morning.
We have been focusing Power Sessions on different things. And so this session, we're beginning a new group of classes that are basically all about mastering difficult client moments. And Eric's going to talk to us a little bit specifically on what the deep dive into that's going to look like today.
Yeah, so some of the topics that we're going to look into are what happens when sellers leave junk behind, or what happens when you go to do a walkthrough and maybe property is damaged, or maybe it's not the same way it was when you initially wrote your offer. What about post-possession issues and concerns? So there's always a lot of concerns anytime we start getting to the close. Parties are excited, agents are excited, and now guess what? We have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's start off with a couple war stories. And Tracy, I know that you and I had talked about one earlier. Can you fill everyone in on what you were talking about earlier and what occurred
Yeah, I
recently?
like it. I like it. We come across a lot of war stories during the week collectively as a group, and if we can't learn from them, then nothing is gained from it. We solve a problem usually when an agent calls in, but I like the idea of being able to share some of them with all of you because I truly believe that the stories are kind of what we remember a lot of times. So when I think about one story that recently came in, it was Kim Anderson and Don that were dealing with it. But it had specifically to do with this moment. And all of you that are on this Zoom can either recall a moment like this or can see it actually happening in live time. So here's the call that comes into Five Star. Hey, Kim or Don, um, the seller left a bunch of stuff at the house. I've just went to the final walkthrough. If you're like Tracy, I do my final walkthrough right before we head to go to the closing because I want to know what it looks like right now, not last night or not the night before, but I want to know what it looks like the moment before we close. And when they showed up, there was all this stuff in the house. Not stuff that was supposed to stay in the house, but stuff that the seller, for whatever reason, we don't know in the moment, we just show up and there's stuff everywhere. So what do you do? You hear me say all the time, I give advice, you give direction. And so when you show up and you see this stuff, what's the advice you're going to be giving? What says you, Eric? What
Yeah,
do you say? Who do you call?
it's not Ghostbusters, trash busters.
Right,
Who do you
exactly.
call? Well, there's a lot of different scenarios here that you're talking about. Uh, you go with the final walkthrough and there's still trash there and there's nothing you can do. And really, it's going to come down to does your buyer want to close or not?
Yeah.
Because once you close, most likely there's no recourse. And the only option would be to, all right, we now know that there's junk there. The buyer now knows that they're going to have to go and now clean up a home that they just bought. And what is that going to entail? Well, documenting pictures of the junk that's left behind, most likely hiring people to come in and remove it, and then a small claim action. And it's kind of a terrible position to be in because people just closed on a home and now they're dealing with an emergency already. And it
Mhm.
kind of sours real estate in
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah. The other thing it
It,
does is it creates a lot of emotions almost instantly that if things had been done a little bit differently, we would have had an opportunity to lower the temperature. So when you walk into the house and you see those things, this is the moment to be the advice giver and to lower the temperature in the room, to make the phone calls and try to get parties to work together so that we have a resolution.
yeah, another option for people that is when you have inspections done on a home. I had one of these in Grand Rapids, uh, inside the attic above the garage. There was so much crap up there that was stored, very old. It looks like just rubbish. And I had made sure that in our repair addendum that I specifically called that out that the seller would remove any articles and products or junk in their above attic garage. It was more of me saying to someone, giving them, it was a notice, clean up the crap that's up there and don't forget about it. Because normally it's out of sight, out of mind because you can't see it, but we knew it was there.
Yeah.
So at least in that repair addendum, now I had documentation that if they failed to do something,
Mhm.
I might have recourse.
Yeah.
So that's being a little more aggressive because you're
Mhm.
just telling someone, "Hey, you got a lot of crap,
Yeah.
clean it up." Well, I
Hmm.
did. My buyer wanted me to, so I was
Yeah.
perfect with that. Another war story. We go to do a final walkthrough, and we noticed that the people who'd moved out had scraped the entire stairs, each one that were wood, and gouged them all the way down from whatever they were moving. Well, when I questioned the listing agent, it wasn't really the seller, it was the moving company that did it. So we had to get authorization and approval from, we delayed closing. We had the moving company actually give us a company to come out and make those repairs satisfactory to the buyer. Yes, it did delay closing. No one was happy about it, but at least the moving company resolved the issue. Now, if we had just closed, I'm sure the moving company still would have helped that situation, but we didn't want to take the risk of a company just saying, well, we're not doing it. Now, it's going to come down to what your client wants. So most people don't have time to wait and delay. We need to get it into the home.
Hmm.
So just make sure if your client is going to move forward, that they understand the risks and that if someone is going to be doing the repair, that you get something in writing that yes, they're going to be making that repair.
Hmm.
Documentation is going to be so critical and is key for every single thing you do. Verbal hearsay will not stand up in courts, and you jeopardize not having something completed from the other side when it's not in writing.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's a really important piece of it. I mean, I've been in, and when you have a situation like Eric had with an attic full of stuff, yes, we have an obligation when we show up to the final walkthrough to make sure the stuff is out, right? Did the seller do what they were supposed to do? Did they make the repairs that they said they were going to make? Did they provide the receipts and all the things that, per the addendum that you wrote to protect your buyer, did those events happen at the time you're doing that final walkthrough? This is your final moment to protect the client before they sit down and they sign to close. I had a seller one time. Her husband had passed away, so she was now a widower, and he had this big barn, 40 by 80. It was a large barn, and he used to repair tractors. You guys, the amount of stuff in this barn was literally unbelievable. So along the way, I kept saying to her, Joanne, have you gotten this done? How are we coming with these things? Oh, and she was making progress. She was saying. And then the final walkthrough came, and you guys, it was like, there's no way. There is no way. And it's not like I was going over and, opening the barn door to look in there. I was trusting that what she was saying, she was doing. And in her defense, and at her age, she felt like she was making progress. It just wasn't going to happen. Okay. And so in that moment, I had to pick up the phone. I had to call the buyer's agent. And her client was like, look, I want the house. I don't care. I will come over. I will bring guys. We will get trucks. And he did all the physical work to get the stuff out of the house, but he made her pay for it. And she was not happy at all because she was trying to like find people to buy stuff. And so when I was asking her, how are you doing? Are you getting anything out? Closing is coming. Like I'm trying to prompt her, but the sense of urgency or her total understanding that really it needed to be empty at the day of closing. So even when you think you're being a good communicator, it may not be received on the other end. So in my case, what I learned is when I know that it is this daunting, I have to read the room. I have to understand who I'm in front of and how I might better help that person if I don't feel like they're moving in a way that's going to be helpful to the outcome. The outcome is the closing.
Yeah, it's almost like I want to take a picture of all the junk and then also get AI to come in and show this clean and clutter free, and then tell your client, this is what it looks like. This is what it needs to look like.
I like it. That's perfect. That's beautiful. If I had only had that then, but I like that. That's, you know what? It's visual. So I like that.
So here's another thing that came up a few months back. We had a closing and someone left a vehicle behind. And a lot of agents are like, well, what do we do with this vehicle? It could be a boat, it could be a trailer, it could be a titled recreational equipment. All of those items don't automatically become the sellers. So agents need to be aware that when you're dealing with vehicles or titled registrations, they actually are the state of Michigan's property when they are abandoned. They are not automatically the sellers. You can contact local police or law enforcement and they can arrange for towing. Those will go to a specific towing company where they will be impounded. And then after 30 days, they will be totaled by the wrecking crew or whoever, or be sold, but they are not property of a seller's. So if you ever are in that position where there's a car left behind or something that's titled, please instruct your sellers to contact local law enforcement and they will be directed on how to get that uh, property resolved. They do not want to try to keep that because that's going to be an unlawful seizure and they can get in trouble for that. Same thing with firearms. Those are not transferable. uh, Leased equipment. I don't know how many times we deal with a closing and all of a sudden we close and then realize, hey, we have equipment here that's leased.
Yeah. And common things for that would be examples of like a water softener downstairs. You knew the house had a well and septic system. You forgot to ask your client. They forgot to mention the fact that, oh, that they lease that equipment. Or I have one right now where the water softener is owned, but the RO system under the kitchen sink is leased. So we need to talk about these kinds of things.
Yeah, and same with untitled vehicles. I think something just popped up. That would be something that I would have you reach out to your local law enforcement to see how they would want to handle that as well. I don't know what, based on certain jurisdictions, what the uh, codes are or law would state for an untitled vehicle. I guess if there was something in writing, of course, in the purchase agreement or a bill of sale that you are buying something, that's different. But just because it's left there doesn't automatically become the property of a seller. Now, there is something that comes up quite often, a bunch of junk that's left behind, and the buyer, I'm sorry, the seller says, I'm coming back for that. Well, how long? What do you mean you're coming back for this? We've already closed. Now you have your crap and items on my property. I want them removed. So if you're ever in that position, I caution you on instructing your client to just move those items and put them somewhere. We had a case where we instructed one agent to just take the items to the curb. Whether that was lawful or not, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend that. I would
Hmm.
think that you would want to get proper notice
Hmm.
that, hey, look, you need to pick these things up within 7 days, or these will be disposed of and potentially even disposed of at your expense in a small claims action. But if anything, maybe I'd recommend they be stored in the garage, at least covered, not damaged, but at least get them out of the way. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of an inconvenience temporarily, but you definitely want to ensure that you give proper notice to a seller if they are trying to get items back. If they don't perform, again, we have to say, have your client talk to an attorney because when we start giving legal advice on what to do with certain property left behind, where a seller is saying, I'm coming back for that, they have given you notice. And now it's like, now we have to waste money. Your client has to waste money to get a legal opinion,
Yeah, and I like
unfortunately.
what when you mentioned giving notice. So giving notice means to me not just by phone. That is notice, right? When I've told you, but what is written is more. It's just like it's got a little bit more teeth. I can't really prove what I said on the phone, but I can prove what I wrote. When I told you, please notify your client that at this day and this time, I intend to discard the items that have been abandoned at the property. So just be really clear about what the timetable looks like and then what the outcome will look like if the items are not taken care of.
And I think a lot of these uh, issues and concerns can be addressed long before we get to the closing.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of agents we tend to forget. We might get too busy, but sometimes a gentle prodding or a simple phone call of, hey, look, we're 2 weeks out. How's your seller doing with regards to moving your items? Are they needing help? Uh, where do you think they stand? Maybe sometimes listing agents don't want to really tell a buyer that, hey, look, my client, there's no way in heck my client's getting out of here in time. And if that's the case, well, what can we do? How do we brainstorm in order to come to a resolution to be able to help? I mean, if I'm a real estate agent, maybe the agent will say, hey, look, I'm a listing agent. I'm going to help my client with $300 with some moving expenses. You know what? If I have to spend $300 to help someone move or do something, I'm going to do it. I just because I want them out. I want this to be a good experience for my
Hmm.
client. Um, it's as simple as if you could invest $500 in your purchase agreement to make 9 grand, is that a good investment?
I think so.
I would say yes to that every time.
Yeah.
I spend 500 to make 9 grand. Perfect. Sign me up. So a lot of these, if we can communicate and the agents can be honest and you build rapport, I think it could go a long way. That it can be a win-win for both parties and a good outcome because that's what we ultimately want as real estate
Hmm.
agents is to have a good feeling. It's supposed to be one of the happiest times. And so many times lately, I've only seen the ugliness in
Hmm.
transactions and deals where it's just bitterness and people are so annoyed with one another. And it has not been a good situation, in my opinion, because we keep dealing with garbage and items where if they'd if we'd only reached across the line to say, hey, look, how can we help? Be a problem solver, that maybe a lot of this could be prevented.
Yeah. Yeah, one of our agents, in an effort to bring the parties together, we had a seller with mobility issues and a buyer that was heck bent on getting in that house. And so it was agreed by all parties that they would close and that the move would kind of two ships would pass in the night. The seller would be moving out as the buyer was moving in. And as my hands go like this, you notice that they hit each other. And that's pretty much what happened through the whole thing. It was an absolute disaster. The buyer could not be moving fast enough. The seller couldn't be moving fast enough. The buyer was upset. It was a lose-lose for everybody. And as I was talking with Eric about this one earlier, I was saying, can you imagine the dust under the furniture in the living room with somebody with mobility issues that haven't moved it in who knows how many years? And so there was no way it could be broom clean because both parties were moving out and moving in at the same time. And it turned out to be a disaster for our agent who was really trying to be helpful so that the buyer could get into their house. And so it's never a good thing. We should have the seller completely out of the house unless there's a possession. But if it's keys at closing, the house should be broom clean and empty of all of the seller's personal items prior to closing.
And understand that if your client has any questions or concerns, and if they're capable of extending closing, this is their last chance. That this is their only trump card that they have left is to not close.
Yeah.
Because once they close, they're now responsible for anything on the property, and they're going to have to do it themselves and then sue the seller in
Hmm.
small claims court. So either they understand those risks, and we have that hard conversation with them that says, "Hey, look, if you end up signing, you will be accepting the responsibility, and most likely you will have to clean this up and sue the seller in small claims court."
Yeah.
If you're okay with that, just understand. But if you're not, then we should probably get a closing extension. We should get an addendum currently right now, hold off on closing. We're going to have them sign an addendum, and then you're going to have your demands. Otherwise, you're not closing. But it's so simple to say, well, we're just not going to close. It's not. It's so simple. It's so frustrating for me to say those words because you know darn well that's not what your client's going to do. Your client's going to close because we're this far and we want them to close, but they just need to know the risks.
Yeah,
That's all, and
yeah.
just have them be prepared mentally that they're going to be a little frustrated with the cleanup process.
Mhm, mhm. And not let's not forget to mention the fact that where is it written in the purchase agreement that says the buyer can choose not to close because they're unsatisfied with their walkthrough, unless there's something written that ties the final walkthrough through to, you know, uh, repairs being done, things like that. There is nothing that says the buyer is entitled to the final walkthrough, but it doesn't say anything else. So. Be
And the
careful
only
what
thing
advice you
that's
give.
and the only thing that a buyer could potentially claim is that the seller's in breach of contract because they failed to perform according to the clean out obligation. So, but again, we're this far along
Yeah.
cleaning. Who knows? Maybe you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, listing agent, can you contribute $300? I'll pay 300 and we'll get a cleaning crew over there." It's a good situation. Wouldn't it be kind of nice if that was actually written into a purchase agreement where the seller's going to pay to have a professional cleaning company come in upon them vacating? I mean, could be an idea, could be a nice housewarming gift or going away gift.
Hmm.
Agents come together, just some ideas. Who knows?
Just an
I don't think
idea.
it'll ever come to fruition in this world, but it's a good thought.
Yeah.
All right,
Um,
here's one thing: post possessions and escrow holdbacks. Sounds good in reality, but it's not going to work in real life practice, right? Because your offer will never get accepted. Tracy, we were just talking about this, how
yeah.
great it would be if everyone was able to have escrow money withheld from the seller's proceeds when the seller was inept and incapable of actually vacating the premises properly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's in our best interest when we give our buyers advice, when we write those contracts, to have some kind of escrow held for that post possession. And in the market we've been in, although I have seen a few recently, even where I'm on the list side, and have accepted them even, where the buyer has asked for a reasonable amount of escrow, $2,000, $3,000. That's all really normal. But we just haven't seen this since 2020, where we are literally protecting our clients. But the thing I wanted to say, Eric, more than anything, was that we need to make sure that we are advising our clients that it is in their best interest that we have an occupancy escrow at closing, and even that the seller would pay to stay in their house. It's pity. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance divided by 30 days. That's the per day charge of the buyer's new mortgage for the seller to stay. But we all know, what do we know, Eric?
By having that, you most likely your offer is not going to get accepted.
Exactly, exactly. So while it's in their best interests, and we know that, we shouldn't lead with that. Well, listen, guys, here's what I know. If we put these things in there, you're not going to get your offer accepted. Really, you should say, here's the best way we should do it. And here are the things that I can be doing to protect your interest. I know that there are other buyers that will use a different strategy, and that's probably a better way to say it than to say, you're not going to get your offer accepted if I do this. But they need to know that if I do it this way, there will be others that will do it another way. And it's okay to say that, but lead with the best way to protect them.
And there are a lot of agents that do come to an agreement with a post possession escrow funds.
Mhm.
And I think if both the agents are just explaining it to the clients that this is really to ensure that the seller has skin in the game, to compel them to actually clean their home and have it in broom clean condition and not damage the property. And it also gives reassurance to the buyer, and it makes it understandable that the buyer can say, well, oh, great, the seller actually does care. They are going to put some escrow here, and
Mhm.
that should ease the minds of your buyer client substantially. And then once they move in after post possession, they can both sign a mutual release for that money or the escrow monies and be on their way. So it's a great practice if if we can get the parties to agree to it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely in there. Obviously, it's in the best interest of the buyer to have some kind of escrow held with the seller. And as the markets turn, things change. And like I said, my some recent listings that I've had, it just depends. When you're on the list side, you're looking at all the offers if you're fortunate, and you're choosing the one that has the least amount of, I'll call it resistance, the cleanest path towards closing. And sometimes it's going to be the offer without the escrow when you're on the list side. But on the buy side, you really should be encouraging. And I think Kim wrote in that if you have a conversation with the listing agent, this is where if you're communicating with the listing agent as you're writing your offers, you're telling them about your really clean offer, and then you're just adding in a small escrow to really protect everyone.
Yeah. And understand for any post possession, these these types of situations should never be handled casually.
Hmm.
And what do I mean by casually? That the agent should never say, well, we'll work it out verbally. Well, no, we don't work out things verbally.
Hmm.
We should never just hand over keys casually in post possession situations. A key exchange should really be defined with who's exchanging, where, what time, what day. Uh, so key exchanges in writing is very important to understand because once you do get those keys, once keys are surrendered, your client now has the right as a buyer to enter the premises.
Hmm.
Now, a seller could vacate the premises and not have turned over keys. If they do that, your buyer does not have a right to enter the premises yet until those keys are surrendered.
Yeah, I have a key exchange form that we use, even if there's no occupancy, escrows, anything. I want it documented when my seller leaves the home and surrenders the keys to the buyer. So we always send one out as soon as the seller delivers possession.
Yeah. And
Um,
again, with our, I noticed a couple weeks, Tracy, there was a post possession that we were looking in dot loop. And some of the associations don't have what's known as a pre-possession. This is before you close and the buyer wants to move in. So can the agents use other association documents for such as this? And the answer is yes, you can. You don't have to use your specific association docs for pre or post possession, but you want to make sure that whatever document that you're using does fit the needs of your clients. Read it and review it. Um, and if there are questions, you can always reach out to us. Uh, and you can also add things to it. If there's something that's in that document, add another addendum for a pre-possession or even a post-possession to spell out additional items that you want or that you're asking for from the seller.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, there's lots of different ways that we should be protecting our clients. You just talked about pre-possession, post-possession checklists. How many times have we not made sure that we like when I'm on the list side and my seller, I always make sure I tell the seller, do not turn off the electricity. I always tell them, or the gas. And it's whoever's head lays on the pillow, that's whose name should be on the light bill and the gas bill. Okay. So I'll say to them the day after closing, I want you to call to make sure the utilities have been transferred. Because once the gas gets shut off, that means the pilot light goes out in the hot water tank. It's not going to be a big deal if it's a 1 day situation, but don't do it as of closing. And then I'm constantly reminding the buyer side, please make sure your buyer has the utilities transferred into their name because literally it will be the thing that really irritates everyone after closing if the buyer did not have the utilities transferred.
And I guess really to sum things up is that with the final walkthrough, it's the final walkthrough is really not where agents should be discovering that the seller has no plan of moving out. And I've always said that great agents typically anticipate problems early when they're communicating. They make a call to the other side and have conversations. I mean, they ask the uncomfortable but professional questions that are needed. They document answers. They protect the client. They protect the transaction, more importantly. And finally, they protect the brokerage so that we don't get sued.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And at the end of the day, when you bump into things that are uncomfortable, that you're really not sure what to do or what to say, this is exactly why the broker support team is here for you. All of us are licensed agents. We are all still selling. We are bumping into the problems ourselves as agents, and we're bumping into each of you. So when you bump into problems like this that are uncomfortable and you're not sure what direction to do, this is the moment to call us, explain to us the situation, let us weigh into it with you, and let us help you navigate your problems because that's exactly what we're here for. As I look at some of the notes over here in the chat, Melissa, what inside of dot loop there, Eric Graham renamed on the left side under documents. There's a folder at the top of dot loop. It says agent forms. Is agent forms all forms? Eric, is that what it's called? Agent forms, all forms. It's a
Forms library.
Forms library, all forms, I think it says in parentheses. Go
Yep.
there and search the word key. And if you don't find something, reach out to me. I created one for my team. You can create your own, but I can show you what I have. And I'd be happy to. But start there to see if there's something in your association or even another association. Let's see. Is that the only? I think I just went kind of fast there. Sadie. Okay, Sadie said the same thing. Um, and Kim says there are different ones in dot loop according to your board. So go search. Yep. So Kim already said that. So, well, guys, this was really great talking about the way things can go sideways. And it does happen. It happens in real estate nearly every day. And so be a pro. Kim Anderson dropped in the Mastering Difficult Moments outline from today. We've outlined ways to even have discussions with people, just conversation starters, questions to ask, checklists of things you could be doing to best protect your client. And so I think you'll find that helpful. So download it, it's a PDF. Any final thoughts, Eric?
No, just keep doing your best out there. And the biggest thing I can say is make the early communication effective for with the other side. Let them know you're there to help as you can, and keep it friendly. Because as soon as we start getting emotional and becoming unprofessional, it's going to destroy that relationship that you have as we get closer to closing. Instead of it being a good relationship working together to get to the finish line, we don't want it to be antagonistic where now we're fighting the client and also the agent. So just continue to do your best. We appreciate you showing up today and listening to us.
Yeah. All right, everybody, have a great week. And I think that was it Mike? Was it Mike Ewing that said it? May the fourth be with you. I love that. So take care. Have a great day, everybody.